DBU, right, Lon? DBU.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Kylan Jackson. He could be the latest. He might be the latest in a long line of course, successful defensive backs, star defensive backs at LSU, and he is the latest to commit to the Bayou Bengals right out of Zachary as a top 10 safety in the country, top 10 player out of the state of Louisiana.
A lot of people are thinking, oh, he's going to flip to A&M. He's going to flip to A&M. And I had heard, there's going to be someone who's thought to commit who's going to actually be going to A&M or some other school. And I was like, I don't think that's going to be Kylin, even though he pushed his commitment date back. I thought that would be Jordan Matthews most likely. And luckily for LSU's sake, turned out to be true. Kylan Jackson, forced to be reckoned with. He's a playmaker at DB. I mean, just look at what he did in this title game. Again, the title game victory for Zachary, his high school against Ponchatoula. 9 tackles, blocked 2 kicks as well. He just very versatile player. Someone who I mentioned a few times, and definitely in that is LSU in trouble under Brian Kelly video, kind of a crossroads of the recruiting class video. I said Kylan Jackson's a guy they'll have to get, and I believe that they would. He was in our mock class as someone who LSU would pick up, and our mock class number 1 list is undefeated thus far, Mark. Kylan Jackson, everyone was freaking out for a second there, but there was nothing to worry about. He was coming to LSU.
And for people that checked out that video, I had to remind many in the comment section, it was a question. It was a question that was being asked.
Yeah.
Are there recruiting issues? There are recruiting issues. Just, hey, it's not up to standards at this point. Just we're exploring at this point. So we're just exactly. Of course, that's why we check in with Lon. Lon sets us straight. All right.
It was mixed.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 other August commits coming in, Shelton Sampson and a guy that you prepped us on for a long time that you expected to flip and come Brian Kelly's way. And of course, that's Ricky Collins, the quarterback who had once committed to Purdue.
Man, I tell you what, Ricky Collins, he's someone that my buddy Adrian Perkins was just telling me about way back in 2020, saying, forget Eli Holstein, forget Arch Manning. This is the young man from that potentially historic 2023 quarterback class out of Louisiana who's going to be the guy to keep your eyes on. And it seemed like, is he going to go to Purdue? And then I kept thinking about Purdue. There's no way. If LSU actually make a push, actually show the desire, like, we want you to be our class quarterback, he's going to come to LSU. Of course, it was a dream come true for the young man. Fantastic get out of Woodlawn High. Ricky Collins off the field, fantastic young man, high 4-star, elite 11 quarterback. He's what you want to represent the brand of LSU. And it's fantastic to keep a great young Louisiana quarterback home and away from the Big Ten, or whatever the future name of that super conference will potentially be. But fantastic to keep him home. And then you give him a 5-star target that he saw commit, I think it was like a few days before he did, Shelton Sampson Jr., someone who I constantly said, this is the guy LSU have to get the number 1 priority, number 1, because he is such a playmaker. Blessed with, like, I think a 6'3", 6'4" height already. He's starting to put on the weight as well. He had just under 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, absolutely brilliant last year while playing with some really messed up hand, like a broken finger, I believe, and was making some fantastic clutch catches as well. He had some games where, like, I believe in the title game that Catholic High won, he only had like 3 catches in that game or something for like 30 yards. A bad game for Shelton Sampson Jr., but then he made this clutch, absolute do or die 3rd down catch in between coverage that was just like, you have to see to believe. And it's like, that's what won and sealed that title game for Catholic High when he showed up in that moment. Shelton Sampson Jr. is an absolute dog. To keep him home, Baton Rouge young man, Alabama coming after him. Texas A&M coming after him, Florida State coming after him, and Florida State probably had the best chance of anybody actually because of some of his connections with Sheldon Sampson Jr. But wow, it just was it was incredible to get that 5-star receiver, who I believe is the number 1 receiver of the class, despite some other recruiting rankings and things like that. I just think pound for pound, he has to be the guy. And it's great to once again show Brian Kelly showing people I can recruit Louisiana, and I can recruit it as good as anybody has done in a while.
Lon, who should we have our eyes on that could be making a decision here soon?
Ooh, I mean, we've all been expecting Lance Hurd, Zalance Hurd, his decision, offensive lineman out of Neville. We've been waiting for his decision for a while. Is he going to come? And I think Florida is probably the main challenger. But I think after Zalance Hurd is seeing his buddy Will Campbell really make a splash as a freshman, showing that Brad Davis isn't afraid to give young men playing time early if they deserve it, if they've earned it. I think that's going to make him absolutely come to LSU. And I think it's just a matter of when, not really if. But Javian Toviano out of Martin. Okay, Mark, this is a 5-star absolute cornerback freak who's just, I've been saying this before. Where is the pinnacle pillar 5-star corner going to be for the 2023 class? Where's he coming from? Where's that name? You always had the Derek Stanley Jr., the Eli Ricks, Tre'Davious Whites, going back. You got these names. You always had one of those guys. And even if you didn't have a bona fide name, you had a guy that everyone knew was an absolute freak, like Tyrann Mathieu. Everyone knew around New Orleans, Louisiana recruiting area, knew that dude out of St. Augustine was going to be something special at LSU. And he was right out of the gates as a freshman. But when you're looking at Javian Toviano out of Texas, Martin High, I think, someone at LSU weren't expected to even have a chance with. Toviano was totally expected to go to A&M. But I love where things are going right now because Toviano continues to visit LSU whenever he gets the chance. He ended up making LSU's visit the priority over A&M's trip, and he completely missed A&M's trip before the dead period entirely. Even though he was going straight home to Texas, he had seen enough with LSU. I think, following up his highly successful visits in June as well, and then the Bayou Splash event, Robert Steeples is doing amazing work here with Toviano. And this is I think, the young man who's going to be that pinnacle corner for the class. And then you also got another guy who could be the pinnacle corner of the class. I mean, this is like 5 stars coming out of my ears, Mark. Bravion Rogers, who has flipped, decommitted from Texas A&M. And this is another powerhouse 5-star cornerback out of the state of Texas, Bravion Rogers. And he's someone who LSU has constantly had some movement with, some traction with, but it hadn't really gotten over that level. But when you got someone like the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, tweeting at Javian Toviano, tweeting at Bravion Rogers, saying, come to DBU. That is a recruiting pitch on a whole nother level, baby. And it's very attractive. And it got Bravion Rogers to kind of go over the top. I think he right now is leaning heavily towards being an LSU Tiger, Javian Toviano. And I think Robert Steeples, what at first looked kind of like a lean DB year, although it was a year of huge need at the position, Robert Steeples has completely turned that around, Mark. It's been very, very satisfying as someone who's a supporter of Steeples to see him kind of prove some people wrong. Derek Williams in the future at safety, though. Another 5-star safety out of Westgate. Texas commit. Can LSU complete another flip with him? And, that would make it 4 safeties in the class with a 4-star rating or higher. That might be too much. I don't think that's going to happen with keeping all of those guys. You might lose Michael Doherty or Ryan Yates in the end if you want to go after Derek Williams. And you got Derek Williams and Kylan Jackson on roster. You'll probably lose Michael Doherty or Ryan Yates, sadly, two talented safeties as well. A lot of options, Mark. A lot of options that LSU are looking for here. Trying to finish this class strong. They've got their quarterback. They've got their two running backs. They've got their class #1 receiver. They're really starting to get some great O-line pieces with Tyree Adams and potentially Zalance Hurd. And now DBU, another position of need, huge position of need in 2023, just like receiver is. They're really starting to stack that talent, stack the possibilities. If we could finish this class with Kylan Jackson, Toviano, potentially Derek Williams, and then you add in Bravion Rogers. I mean, are you serious? That's at least a #1, #2, maybe at worst #3 class in the country finishing. Right now, I think it's LSU #4 in the country. I mean, Mark, we have absolutely surged up the rankings. What Brian Kelly has absolutely perpetrated upon his SEC competitors in his first recruiting cycle within the SEC is pretty fantastic. And this staff, too. They've hit the ground running. They've got fantastic chemistry together. This is all about the backroom staff, doing work. Jordan Arsamon, Corey Phillips, Sherman, Wilson, Super Bowl Sherman, absolutely killing it. J.R. Belton. I mean, the list goes on. Destiny Wilson. There's so many fantastic components of that recruiting staff, and they're backing up the on-field staff and in really, really fine fashion. July and August, absolutely historic for LSU in recruiting. It's going to be remembered for a long time to that type of jump with that timing.
LSU with 20 hard commits for 2023, and as it stands, #6 in the 247 Sports composite. Lon Phillip Sullivan, LSU Odyssey. Get there, check out the work right there. Get yourself ready for LSU and Florida State, less than 3 weeks away. Lon, always appreciate you stopping by. Hope everything's going well. Great to see you, and of course, we'll have to get together soon.
Absolutely, Mark. Anytime. Let's do some lives. And yeah, man, thank you so much for the well wishes and lack of sleep with the baby. But hopefully I didn't melt anybody's minds too much. Everybody, thank you so much. And it's football season, baby. We can feel it. It's coming, Mark. I can taste the pigskin, brother. I can taste it.